part of the question on the issues of refugees coming to Jordan, and I think I can quite strongly speak on behalf not only of Jordan as a nation, but of our friends in Egypt. That is a red line, because I think that is the plan by certain of the usual suspects to try and create de facto issues on the ground. No refugees in Jordan, no refugees in Egypt.
What was your response when you heard what Governor DeSantis said?
We cannot accept people from Gaza into this country as refugees. I am not going to do that. If you look at how they behave, not all of them are Hamas, but they are all anti-Semitic.
I dealt with this every day for 2 years. And, what I can tell you is you have to realize that whether we're talking about Gazans and Palestinians, all of them don't. You've got half of them at the time that I was there didn't want to be under Hamas's rule. They didn't want to have terrorists overseeing them. They knew that they were living a terrible life because of Hamas. You had the other half that supported Hamas and wanted to be a part of that. We see that with Iran, too. The Iranian people don't want to be under that Iranian regime. They don't. We saw what happened to Masa Amini. We saw how they treat them. There are so many of these people who want to be free from this terrorist rule. They want to be free from all of that. And America's always been sympathetic to the fact that you can separate civilians from terrorists. And that's what we have to do.
To that point, you've made it very clear that you do not think the U.S. should take in any refugees from Gaza. One of the reasons you gave for that is you said that all the people in Gaza are anti-Semitic. You have received some pushback on that, including from some Republicans, including some of your Republican opponents. Nikki Haley, for example, said today that, quote, America has always been sympathetic to the fact that you can separate civilians from terrorists. She also said that many of these people want to be free from this terrorist.
That's not the question. It's not the question of whether they're all terrorists. In Gaza, they teach the kids to hate Jews. If you look at the textbooks, Israel is not on the map of the Middle East. And so this is embedded in the culture. I think it's a very toxic culture. I think that's part of the reason Gaza turned to Hamas. And the idea, they elected Hamas, and there's a lot of support for Hamas there. So that's a very toxic culture, and I worry about importing that to our country.
Someone like Nikki Haley, for example, has condemned that. She's very pro-Israel, but she's taken a slightly more sympathetic stance.
Nikki Haley would import people. That's been her position. I get that.
That's
she
not
wants
necessarily
to.
her stance, but she says
well,
we should
I
be
would
more
not import. I would not import.
See the humanity potentially in the folks that are.
But you also have to speak the truth. And the truth is, in Gaza, it's a dysfunctional, toxic society, in part because they teach young people to hate Jews. That is endemic to their culture. And, we've been dealing with this issue. I remember in Congress, people tried to defund some of the money going to the textbooks, but it is really, really bad. And so you just have to understand that. And it doesn't mean that they're all members of Hamas, but what it does mean is that's not something you want to import into the United States.
So that's where you differ from your opponent, Nikki Haley there.
I'm willing to speak the truth. She's trying to be politically correct. She's trying to please the media and people on the left. I don't care about that. I'm going to speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may.
There's a lot of polling that has shown that a large percentage of those folks in Gaza do not want to be under Hamas rule.
Well, I don't think that you're going to find a lot of polling suggesting that they believe Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state, and I don't think you would find a lot of pro-Jewish sentiment amongst the population, because you'd be persona non grata there if you took that position.
The other day you said half of the Palestinians don't want to be ruled by Hamas. I don't know if you were speaking about all Palestinians or those living in the Gaza Strip. Ron Desantis, in a time of politics, jumped on that remark. He said this.
She's trying to be politically correct. She's trying to please the media and people on the left. I don't care about that. I'm going to speak the truth and let the chips fall where they may.
What do you make of that? Because he's saying we should not take any Gazan refugees into the U.S.
I've always said we shouldn't take any Gazan refugees in the U.S. I said it when I was at the UN that we shouldn't take Syrian refugees at the U.S. I believe that those in the region should take them. I said that about Syria then. That's why Jordan and Turkey took the bulk of the refugees there. And I think, honestly, the Hamas sympathizing countries should take these Gazans now. We're talking about Qatar. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about Turkey. They should stay in the region. There is no reason for any refugees to come to America. And my record's very clear on that.
So you agree with Ron DeSantis?
I've always said that. I mean, that's the last thing we want. One, because we don't know who they are. But two, Bill, look at the fact that Egypt doesn't want them. Why doesn't Egypt want them? For the same reason that we should not want them. It's because you can't vet them. You don't know. America's always been sympathetic to the fact that you can separate civilians from terrorists. And that's what we have to do.
Should Arab countries be taking on the lion's share of the burden to absorb what could be over 1 million, if not more, refugees from Gaza?
I think there's something to be said about the region's partners being able to support and step up Palestinians. However, that does not abdicate the United States from our historic role that we've played in the world of accepting refugees and allowing people to restart their lives here.